Do you find yourself doing things which you later regret doing? Do you find yourself unable to live up to your expectations? Do you find yourself disconnected from your mind? If this is you, then welcome or welcome back. Alex of ONILIFE. An introduction to psychology, the scientific study of human behaviour and mental processes. A quick overview of the history of psychology and applying an understanding of the ego to better navigate you through life. The exploration of the mind traces back thousands of years across various cultures, with prominent figures like Plato and Aristotle theorizing about the nature of the psyche. Plato proposed a tripartite model of the soul: logistikon, epiphymetikon, and thumodis, while Aristotle emphasized observation and reason. This laid the groundwork for early psychology, which was initially intertwined with philosophy. 2,000 years ago, across the world, Chinese rulers conducted the world's first psychological exams, requiring public officials to take personality and intelligence tests. In the late 800s, Persian doctor Muhammad ibn Zachariah al-Razes was one of the first to describe mental illness and even treated patients in what was essentially a very early psych ward in his Baghdad hospital. René Descartes introduced Cartesian dualism, separating the mind and body as distinct entities. However, the lack of empirical methods hindered progress until Wilhelm Wundt established the first experimental psychological lab in 1879, marking the formal beginning of psychology as a scientific discipline. Following Wundt, Edward Titchener founded structuralism, aiming to deconstruct mental processes into elemental structures by introspection. However, its limitations led to the emergence of functionalism, which focused on understanding the purpose of mental processes. Sigmund Freud pioneered psychoanalysis, delving into the role of the unconscious mind and introducing concepts like the id, ego, and superego. Despite its influence, Freud's theories faced criticism for the lack of empirical evidence. Behavioralism, led by Ivan Pavlov, emphasized studying observable behavior, excluding mental processes from scientific inquiry. However, cognitive psychology emerged in the 1960s, aiming to investigate internal mental processes while still observing behavior. This shift marked a pivotal moment in understanding the mind-brain relationship. Contemporary psychology encompasses various fields like developmental psychology, social psychology, and cognitive psychology, each focusing on a distinct aspect of human behavior and cognition. Unlike the past, modern psychologists often specialize in specific research areas rather than adhering to singular schools of thought. Throughout its evolution, psychology has transitioned from philosophical speculations to empirical inquiry, exploring the complexities of human mind through diverse methodologies and interdisciplinary approaches. This ongoing journey can be shown by modern psychologists who are spearheading this field to this very day. A few of my favorites include Jordan Peterson. He's a clinical psychologist and professor emeritus at the University of Toronto. He became internationally known in the 2010s for his view on culture and political issues. He has published more than 100 scientific papers, and some of his best-selling books include 12 Rules for Life, written 2019, and Maps of Meaning, written in 1999. Professor Steve Peters, an English psychiatrist who works in elite sports. He is best known for his work with British cycling. He has published books such as A Path Through the Jungle in 2021 and The Chimp Paradox in 2012. Daniel Kahneman, an Israeli-American author, psychologist, and economist notable for his work on hedonic psychology, psychology of judgment, and decision-making. His work includes Thinking Fast and Slow, written in 2013, and Noise, A Flaw in Human Judgment, written in 2022. In this episode, we'll be looking more deeply at Sigmund Freud's iceberg model, which has been updated to the happiness hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. The three elements of the iceberg model consist of id, or instincts, the ego, or reality, and the superego, or morality. So the id is the part of the psyche that is full of primitive desires, sexual and aggressive drives, as well as hidden memories, while the superego is the psyche's moral compass. The term ego is often used informally to suggest that someone has an inflated sense of self. However, ego in personality has a positive effect. The ego's job is to mediate between the other two parts, the id and the superego. Having a strong ego means having a strong sense of self-awareness. All three parts working together is what ultimately creates human behavior. The id, according to Freud, is the source of all psychic energy, making it the primary component of personality present from birth. It is entirely unconscious and includes instinctive and primitive behaviors which help you survive. For example, trying to convince a baby to wait until lunchtime to eat the meal. However, the id requires immediate satisfaction because the other components of the personality are not yet present, so the baby will cry until these needs are fulfilled. The superego, according to Freud, begins to emerge around the age of 5. It holds internalized moral standards and ideals that we acquire from our parents and society, a sense of right and wrong. It provides guidelines for making judgments. For example, a student forgets to study for a history test, feels an urge to cheat of a student sitting nearby. Even though he feels like his chance of getting caught are very low, he knows that cheating is wrong, so he suppresses the urge. The ego, according to Freud, develops from the id and ensures that the impulses of the id can be expressed in a manner acceptable in the real world. It functions in the conscious, preconscious, and unconscious mind, and is responsible for dealing with reality. For example, the id might want to skip the work meeting and have a nap instead. However, the ego understands that the meeting is important for the business, hence the livelihood of the person, and so promises the id that it can have a nap once the meeting's over. Freud identified that the horse id pulling the carriage with the rider ego, holding the reins with the whip, and an old man, superego, giving instructions to the rider. The id is the powerful horse putting the carriage forward. It often listens to instructions of the ego, which is the rider, but tends to act on its desires if left unmonitored. The superego is the old man who acts as a moral compass with a strong idealized belief for where the carriage should go. So he often gives instructions to the ego, the rider. However, as a superego, the old man is sitting at the back of the carriage, is unable to see the path ahead. Therefore, you, the ego, has to think long term to strategize the best way to go forward while meditating between the two extremes, the id, the horse, and the superego, the old man. Id, ego, and superego. Freud's elements of personality is not the actual way the mind works, but is a simplified model which you can apply to certain situations in your daily life. For example, your id tells you that it's craving a donut as it sees and smells the donuts from the store coming to your sight. However, the superego tells you that you'll surpass your daily calorie target if you eat one. Therefore, the ego mediates both of them by buying a donut, but telling itself that you can't eat it until it takes a long route back home, where it burns the extra calories. It's important to recognize the tug of war going on in your mind, and to identify the id, ego, and superego, and the respective voices as they occur. If you try to spot these circumstances when they occur, your ego is more likely to be able to make better decisions towards taking action that best benefits you in the long run. A daily meditation habit will clear your mind, making it easier for you to identify these circumstances, and journaling them down can help you come up with strategies to best navigate through them. Check these videos out. Thank you for watching the video until the end. Please feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions or queries. And yeah, I'll be looking forward to seeing you again during next week's video, where we'll be carrying on with the mind, but we'll be looking at a more modern kind of concept, the chimp management mind model by Professor Steve Peters, whom I mentioned earlier as being one of my favorite psychologists. Okay, I wish you all an amazing week. All the best. Peace out.